Now, I know you're probably thinking, well, Axel, this is your video game where you can put a car in your game? No, 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 no. Where's the game? I don't even like cars, bro. And you know what? You're right. This isn't for the video game. But you know what it is for? Religion. You make a Jesus card? Where have you even been? It's been like 8 months. In religion, we were tasked with discussing how the brain of a self-driving car should work. Of course, we were meant to do this through PowerPoint, but because I have such a massive brain, I decided that I would just make a self-driving car in Unity, of course, because to actually make one requires like knowledge and engineering and schooling, and well, that ain't me. So first things first, we're just going to make a Unity project and set up the basic scene, how the sort of look of the simulation is going to be. With the scene set up, we can now start talking specifically about what we're actually going to show. So we're going to have the car, which is currently a bean, and it's going to choose between two choices, two sets of pedestrians, and those pedestrians are going to have a certain amount of data in them, and then we're going to create a priority system to dictate which pedestrian is more valuable. The car will be using a philosophical method called consequentialism, made by this guy. The idea is to choose the option that will result in the most amount of good for the most amount of people and the least amount of bad for the least amount of people. The reason we're using this method is because we can turn good and people into a number and then feed those numbers to a computer, and the computer will be like, yes, these are good numbers, and then it'll do pretty much all of the work for me. With all that out of the way, let's get to our first task, which is getting the car to choose to kill the least amount of people. This will be pretty easy to do. All we have to do is give the people a base value, and then we make the car choose to hit the lowest value. So, for example, one person would be worth 10, therefore one choice would be worth 10, and then 3 people would be worth 30, so the other choice would be worth 30, so the car would always choose to kill less. Okay, that's ready now. So it's going to choose to hit the one person, but then if we go ahead and change that to 3, it's going to change course and hit the 2 people, because 3 is more than 2. After adding some UI, we're ready to move on to one of the hardest challenges I've faced as a programmer. Making the pedestrians not do this. The idea is to just make the pedestrians order themselves in neat rows so they don't intersect with each other or make it hard to tell who the car is actually hitting. This really is as easy as it sounds, but apparently I felt like being a brainlet and ended up making it way harder than it needed to be. So here's all the ways I fucked up. That took way longer than it should have, but now we're ready to move on to something else. I'm a little sick of programming now, so we're just going to focus on some of the visuals for the simulation. By that, of course, I mean we're going to go to the Unity Asset Store and borrow some assets. Now that there's an actual car in the simulation, I'm going to sleep. Okay, now it's Sunday and the project's due tomorrow, so we have to finish everything up today. We don't have much left, and assuming we don't have another 4-hour delay, we should be able to finish it pretty quick. With that in mind, the first thing we have to tackle is pedestrian UI, so let's get started with that. What we want to end up with is a menu that will affect the stats of each pedestrian. So we're going to have inputs, things like age, their sex, their occupation, and then maybe any mental disabilities. All things that are going to affect the outputs like life expectancy and maybe how they affect society. And then the car is just going to take that into account. It will assign them a value based on how long they live and how positively they'll affect society. And it's going to do that through each person, and then with all that information, it's going to give each group a value, and then it'll choose to hit the group that scores the lowest. Now that we have the pedestrian UI working, we actually have all of the functions working for this simulation. The only thing we have left is to do a lot of bug fixing and put some better visuals in there, just get it ready for presentation. But before we see the final product, it's shilling time, baby. Hey! See that big red button down there? Yeah, you know the one. Now I want you to press that big red button or I will press charges. Now I know that you know that we both don't want that, so I'm counting on you, champ. Pretty much all of the changes are visual. As you can see, the car's headlights now, the animations are a lot better. Best part, I believe personally, is that the beans now grow when you change their age. I think that's pretty awesome, but that's pretty much it. As we run over some examples in the background, I do just want to talk about a couple of things. The first thing being is that this project is very flawed. That's needless to say. The car makes its decisions based off of very little information, and you can argue that the concept that this is based off of is flawed on a fundamental level. That aside, this was a very fun project to do, and I should thank my group members, which helped find some of the statistics we based the car's decision making off of for the occupations and whatnot. Other than that, I hope you enjoyed. Uploads will probably be a little faster next time around. Next video is going to be back on the game. We're going to do some combat, but yeah. I'm just going to leave the examples running, and that's pretty much it.